Not because you've regressed, not because you've lost faith, but because something inside you has already outgrown the whole drama. You see that the I you fought so hard to protect was only a shadow dancing on the wall of the cave, and the new light that has arrived makes every shadow vanish at once. Not because you've regressed, not because you've lost faith, but because something inside you has already outgrown the whole drama. You see that the I you fought so hard to protect was only a shadow dancing on the wall of the cave, and the new light that has arrived makes every shadow vanish at once. Then comes the emptiness you never saw coming, not a dead, barren void, but an emptiness so vast that none of the old goals feel worthy of filling it. It's like a huge old house that's just been emptied of all the inherited furniture, acres of open space inside your chest, yet nothing from before seems to belong there anymore. This is what Nietzsche called the death of God, on a personal scale, when every value you ever borrowed from the outside collapses, and for the first time you are forced to become the creator of new values, straight from the heart of that emptiness. Carl Jung called this phase nigredo in the language of alchemy, the blackening, the rotting, the dissolving of everything false so that true gold can finally appear, not punishment, not backsliding. It is the dark womb where the deepest rebirth takes place. If you're sitting in that darkness right now, this is the moment we walk together. Turn on the notification bell and join the Metasitta channel. You'll help grow a gentle space for all the other souls who are also learning to embrace emptiness as the most fertile soil for brand new meaning. Let's look after one another. Awakening is not merely psychological. It is an ontological earthquake, a shaking of the most basic question, who am I really? For decades, the ego built a magnificent palace out of identifications. I am this career. I am this role. I am these achievements. I am these wounds. Then, in one breath of awareness, the entire palace burns to the ground. What remains is not nihilistic nothingness, but an emptiness that contains everything, like a night sky finally free of city lights. So the countless stars that were always there suddenly reveal themselves. Heidegger would call it Unheimlichkeit, the uncanny feeling of no longer being at home in a world that used to feel so familiar. Kierkegaard would call it the anxiety before true freedom. Jung called it the first real encounter with the self, not a bigger ego, but the center of the soul that was never born and will never die, that has only been covered by the noise of the persona. And here is the deepest paradox. The closer you get to the self, the further you feel from everything you once called life. Because authentic life, according to Jung, is not a life that is full. It is a life that is empty, empty of illusions, empty of the need to prove anything, empty of the need to be someone. Like a cup turned upside down, only when it is completely empty can it finally be filled with something truly new. Man's task is to become conscious of the contents that press upward from the unconscious. Neither should he persist in his unconsciousness, nor remain identical with the unconscious elements of his nature. The way of individuation lies between these extremes. Carl Jung, Memories, Dreams, Reflections. Post-awakening emptiness is so often mistaken for depression or regression, yet it is the most sacred stage in the alchemy of the soul. In Nigredo, everything no longer aligned with the self has to rot first. Every borrowed value, every forced goal, every identity shaped by trauma or other people's expectations, Everything must melt into black, stinking mud before rubido, the reddening stage of rebirth, can begin. This is what Heidegger meant by Geworfenheit, being thrown into existence without instructions. You are thrown into emptiness, with no handholds, no map, no ready-made reasons. And it is exactly in that thrownness that real freedom is born. The freedom to create meaning that is no longer a reaction to the world, but a response to the quiet call of your own soul. Jung saw the whole process as the mandala of individuation, a circle that keeps turning from thesis, ego, to antithesis, confrontation with the unconscious, towards synthesis, self. Emptiness is the 0 point at the center of the mandala, where all opposites meet, and from that meeting something completely new is born. 1. Learning the language of silence is no longer a meditation exercise. Silence becomes ontology, a way of being. When you finally stop looking for something inside the silence, the emptiness itself begins to speak, not with words, but with a presence so complete that all the world's noise starts to feel like children's toys. In that silence you begin to hear not the voice of thought, but the rhythm of the soul, a rhythm that never asks for proof, that never asks you to be more. 2. Remembering the myth that hasn't finished writing itself after all the old stories have burned, you stop searching for a purpose. You start listening to the narrative that existed before you were born. Your personal myth buried beneath conditioning, beneath trauma, beneath shoulds. It appears in dreams, in urges that keep returning no matter how many times you try to kill them, in the sudden feeling of this is home, when you do something the world calls useless. That myth is never grandiose. It is only honest, and its honesty is what makes it eternal. 3. Turning wounds into living symbols. Creativity is no longer a hobby. It becomes sacrament, the way to transform suffering into forms that others can see, touch, hear. Jung called it active imagination, letting the unconscious speak through your hands, your voice, your movement. When you create from emptiness, not to fill the emptiness, but to become its vessel, something transcendent happens. You stop searching for meaning. You become meaning. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens. Carl Jung. Post-awakening emptiness is not failure, not depression, not regression. It is nigredo, the darkest and most fertile stage in the alchemy of the soul. In that darkness, every old value melts, every false identity rots, so that space is made for meaning no longer borrowed from the world, but born from the depths of who you really are. True awakening is not floating above life. It is landing fully inside it, without shields, without masks, without ready-made reasons. And from there, with extraordinary courage, beginning to create a new world worthy of the soul that has been reborn. Post-awakening emptiness is not failure, not depression, not regression. It is nigredo, the darkest and most fertile stage in the alchemy of the soul. In that darkness, every old value melts, every false identity rots, so that space is made for meaning no longer borrowed from the world, but born from the depths of who you really are. True awakening is not floating above life. It is landing fully inside it, without shields, without masks, without ready-made reasons. And from there, with extraordinary courage, beginning to create a new world worthy of the soul that has been reborn. In the middle of this emptiness, what is starting to whisper from within, not as a demand, not as a should, but as a call so gentle it is almost inaudible? Share in the comments. Your story is light for someone still terrified that this darkness is the end. And if this reflection touched you, share it with one soul sitting in their own Nigredo. Hit subscribe, turn on the Metasitta bell, so when the emptiness feels too vast, you'll remember you are not lost. You are exactly in the womb where true meaning is born. This emptiness is not a curse. It is the sacred space where God, or the self, or truth, waits to be born through you. And every birth always begins in the thickest darkness.